we got a new appointee to the board this morning at 9:30. We did contact them, but they couldn't make it, obviously. They hadn't even been notified
Right,
yet.
that's what I was saying,
Yeah,
Stephanie, because I
You
called,
would know that.
I know, to see what was going on, and she said, well, we're waiting to hear who it is, and I'm thinking, like, they're gonna be ready to just run up the hill and go to a meeting.
Well, what I was going to suggest is they might abstain from all the votes, but if they were present, we'd still have a quorum.
Right.
You know, but yeah, I knew it was a long shot, you know,
Just postpone.
but it's good we're able to get Dick, because there are a couple of the ones on here, like, well, the airline,
Yeah,
which we definitely need to get
I
passed.
figured there was something that,
Yeah, Tuesday is the
Illegal.
announcement day.
oh, okay.
It doesn't leave us a whole lot of leeway.
No, it doesn't, critical. We might have had to have Sunday brunch together.
The LA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's no rush, we just, you know, I lived through that, and I don't have any of the history back to that 87, and, you know, nor does anyone else. So I was wondering, you know, I mean, in the discussions with Cynthia when that program was getting set up, I mean, was there ever any expression of other land that we wanted to acquire, or, and then I know Kathy worked extensively with the city on those allocation orders, but I don't know if we ever talked about getting a new building.
Same old stuff.
So I don't, yeah, those are the couple
How about
questions
you?
I
What's
had.
up with you? Same? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be digging into it, just don't have a chance with the.
Small group here today.
Oh, is that this week?
Yeah, it's just a short week, so if that's okay.
Yeah, no, it's no rush. Yeah, we're just trying to get that stuff cleaned up for the report. So.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
We're
Yeah,
not as late as the clock would imply.
yeah,
I don't
That's right.
think.
Something
I
like
got one straight up right now.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Great Falls Airport Authority Board meeting. And the first item on the agenda is we are going to postpone the regular board meeting until 2 o'clock, until we can get a quorum. And so at this point, we will just move to the work session. And I guess we don't have to have a quorum for the work session, so we will just start with the work session. And I will call to order the February 25th Airport Authority work session at this time. And the first item on the agenda, well, I guess we should reflect who is here in the minute. That is Commissioner Goodsup, Commissioner Evans, and Commissioner Talcott, and all others are not present at this time. So the first item on the agenda would be, John, our floating bridge refurbishment.
Sure, and the floating bridge program's been underway now for a number of years. Back when I got here, I think in 2010, United didn't have a loading bridge, and they were using a scaffold, and it was a pretty bad situation. The thing would really flap and flutter in the wind. So we commenced with the acquisition of the first loading bridge, and we had that in place in 2011. From there, Delta expressed an interest in selling us their two existing bridges, which they had brought to the airport over time. And we negotiated that price at about $75,001, $1 being for the old 76 bridge, which is original to this building when it was built. And then the second bridge was brought to us in the 80s at some point, I think, wasn't it late 80s?
Yeah, the other one, actually, it's a 2000.
Oh, it's 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was honestly a really good deal that Delta cut us on that. And then we turn around and charge them rent for that every month. So we're actually getting repaid for acquisition costs for that bridge anyway. And then shortly after that, we started in the terminal program, and that gave us the opportunity to build the new Gate 4, or new Gate 3. We acquired a new bridge, I should say a refurbished bridge from McCarran, the company that bought that and refurbished it, brought it up here and installed it. And so that gave us really three really high-quality bridges and one kind of beat-up bridge. And then down at Gate 5, the existing Gate 5, we've had this bridge that we got from Casper back in the 80s. Well, it's from the 80s. I guess we got it in 2000.
We got it in 2005 or so.
And, you know, it's serviceable, it needs to be renovated. Every so often with these bridges, what we can do is we can have all the motors replaced that control the drives, that move the bridge in and out, move it side to side, have the jack screw service, which is what allows it to go up and down. And then the control panel, it's got a fairly old control panel, and we've been consistently in replacing these bridges going to the same control panel so that if an airline has to switch gates, the operators are all going to be familiar with the control setup. More recently, Gate 5 was involved in an aircraft damage accident a few months ago, and we feel that, you know, that the timing is right. We need to get that bridge looked at, fully worked over and renovated. And so we put together this project to renovate the bridge in the upcoming new fiscal year. The reason we're trying to get the capital program all pulled together is we need to get all the projects out to the airlines over the next couple of weeks in order to get them to vote, if they choose to vote, on the capital program. And so we're trying to get everything pulled together to get that vote out there. Rod went out and he contacted a number of companies and ran an ad in the paper to renovate the bridge. We got in a number of proposals out there, and the proposal that he's most comfortable with, Rod, is
GDT, which is the cheaper one.
the cheaper one. And so we've got a budget on this item of about $150,000, and that should be sufficient to get the bridge renovated. In addition to renovation, we can put in some new carpet on it. $130,000. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that Skycon bid on here is wrong. It's been updated. They didn't include those motors, so add 13,000 to that one.
Oh, okay. Here, I can pass these around if anyone's interested.
Yeah, I didn't.
These are the actual pricing proposals we got.
But the last one is not correct. It should be like 118,000 under Skycon.
Okay, so Skycon, 105 plus another 13 is 118.
Yeah.
So JBT is the lowest, $107,000, and then we'll do some of the stuff we'll do locally. The carpet, for example, we'll use a local carpet company to carpet that bridge. We might do some painting to the bridge and those types of things. But we think for $130,000, we can renovate that bridge and add about 10, 15-year life to it easily. So it'll be in service for another decade or more. The nice thing about the Gate 5 is it's our biggest parking position out there. We can park a fairly large plane on the end of the building. And so this spring we'll be moving Alaska Airlines down to Gate 4, which is one of our smaller bridges. They don't use, or one of our smaller gates, they don't use a bridge. So we won't have to replace that 1976 bridge anytime soon. They can operate out of Gate 4, and then we'll have Gate 5 to ourselves. When we have charters and those types of things, there won't be as many schedule conflicts because it'll be an airport-owned gate and be open for us to use. And so Frontier and Allegiant will share that this summer, and then we'll put Sun Country and some of the other charters on it as they come in. And then when we have diversions, which occasionally we do get larger diversions from either Seattle or Calgary, that gate can be used for those types of diversions too. So we'd like to, next month, have the board consider a CIP project for $130,000 to renovate Gate 5, the loading bridge.
Okay. Are there any questions on that?
I have two. The first one is, so the typical life of one of these might be 25 to 30 years with good maintenance? Is that what we're...
I'd say even 40 years.
40? Okay.
Yeah, the 76 bridge is at the end of its life, but you know, it certainly is. It is still serviceable and would be still used occasionally. So the metal tubes themselves, those can stay in service for a long time. You know, and perhaps the newer bridges with more modern systems might even last longer than that, where they could continually be renovated.
Okay. And then if I was following the history, so is Gate 2 then vintage 2000, or that's
Yeah.
just when we got it? Or they, let's see, it's, anyhow, is that, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, it was used, and we got it in 2011 from them, but they got it in...
It was bought new and placed here by Delta, and then we purchased it from Delta a couple of years ago.
But it was a 2000?
Yeah, it's a 2000, it was built in 2000.
So presumably another 5,
Yeah.
10 years down the road, probably closer to 5, we'll probably need to renovate that one, you know, with the same type of things.
It's getting new carpet here soon, the weather warms up, it really, it's in really good shape. And then our gate 1, basically brand new, we bought that new in 2011.
Well, and even Gate 3, that bridge, you know, for all
That was a
for
refurbished.
intents and purposes, it functions like a new bridge too.
What is the estimated downtime for that, for all the repairs?
I think they're probably going to be
Couple
2 to 3 weeks. And so in that interim, what we'll do is move Allegiant to the old 76 bridge, and we'll have a set of air stairs standing by just in case we can't get it operational for the full time. But ideally, they'll be using the 76 bridge. In addition, the contractor that's here, this JBT, they come around and service all of our bridges once a year by contract anyway. So if something does happen to the 76 bridge that can be quickly fixed, you know, we've got them on site to get the bridge operational for Allegiant. So the idea would be to have Allegiant operate off of Gate 4 for about 3 weeks until we get the bridge fixed. Alaska can continue to operate out of the Gate 5 because they don't use a bridge anyhow, so they can continue to do what they do. And then once that bridge is operational, it'll be ready for Frontier when they come in May. So the idea is to get Alaska moved, get the bridge renovated and everything before May, the busy summer month, because that gate will actually see quite a bit of use this summer.
You talked about it having an accident.
It did, yeah.
What's an accident?
Well, you know, and again, we've turned it into the insurance, and I think they're still looking at it, but
And we haven't heard anything.
we haven't heard anything back yet, whether the employee that was operating the bridge, which are airline employees, where it connects to the door, you know, the whole unit goes over top of the door, and somehow it made contact with the door, whether, you know, one of the controls was moved too quickly, or the stops weren't in, you know, or, you know, there was
Oh,
mechanical.
it tweaks the door.
Yeah, it damaged the door. And so, you know, we're in discussions with our insurance company and Allegiant about that incident. We haven't drawn any conclusions, but, you know, just given the fact that it, you know, like the airplane was damaged and somebody maintained the, you know, came in and gave that the once-over, we think the timing's good to give the bridge a once-over too and make sure it wasn't damaged in the incident too. So we'd ideally get this, you know, get this thing renovated as quick as we can.
So how does that work? We own the bridge. They operate it.
Mhm.
Are we exposed to everything they do?
Potentially, you know, there is exposure there, and that's why we're insured. You know, there's, you know, oftentimes some, you know, statements exchanged back and forth. The insurance company does an investigation, and then typically, you know, there would be either a settlement from the insurance company, or, you know, the insurance company would say it's their fault. Is how those things typically get done. And they happen, and, you know, not just out there. You get occasionally a passenger fall on the ramp, and, you know, whose fault's that? You know, the airline's escorting them across the ramp, and it's our ramp. You know, so there's a number of places where we're kind of mutually exposed with the airline. And then there's always the incidents that happen on the airfield, you know, where a wing gets into a snowbank and there's damage, and whose fault was that? And you know, it does certainly happen at an airport.
Okay. Is there any other questions? And we'll move that to the regular board meeting agenda for next year, or next month. Number 2 item on the agenda is the PFC application.
And this is, the airport collects what's known as a passenger facility charge from every passenger that goes through the airport. We get $4.50. The airport on the other end, destination side, gets $4.50. And then there's an additional $4.50 that's split between any connecting hubs. And the $4.50, we're only allowed to impose that for a 5-year period. We have to keep an application on file with the FAA. So that a 5-year period of PFC collections, we have authorization to spend it on eligible projects. Generally, any infrastructure project is eligible at an airport. Parking lots and things that are purely commercial are excluded from that. But for the most part, any infrastructure can be done with PFCs. When the first PFC application was done at the airport had built the new terminal ramp, and all of the PFCs were being used to pay debt service back. That is the one exemption where you can extend beyond 5 years, is if you're paying for a long-term debt service collection. Over the course of 2 refinancings, and then growth in passengers, our PFCs that we collect have actually exceeded the debt service. And so back in 2011, before Sharon Tuck left, our former CEO, we put in another application to soak up the additional collections and use that for projects we'd recently done that were eligible. So we did a reimbursement application and reimbursed ourselves for the snow truck we bought back in 2011 and a few other odds and ends. In addition, we established a pool of funds to pay for our local share on the noise mitigation project because at the time, there was an expressed concern over using reserves for that, and so we put in that PFC application. Since then, we've refinanced again, and on top of that, passengers have grown yet again, and so there are more excess collections in the PFC account that we can use going forward. And so Maria and I kind of took a look at the account 2-3 weeks ago and concluded that we ought to put in another PFC application to extend our collections out another 5 years and apply those additional residual funds to the continuation of the noise program so that we have a pool of funds we don't have to draw from reserves for our local match. It's about $220,000 a year. And then in addition to that, it looks like over the next 5 years, there would be sufficient funds to pay ourselves back for about $1 million worth of the terminal renovations that we just completed. So if you remember from the funding plan from the terminal, we paid already the federal portion of that's about $4.2 million, $4.5 million around in there. The airlines have paid $1.5 million, or will pay $1.5 million over the course of 10 years. And then the rest of it is about $900,000 that we paid out of reserves. And we had no intent of recovering that from the airlines. That was just our contribution to the project. Now it looks as though we could recover that from PFCs. So what we'd like to do is submit an updated PFC application. The projects we would include are just an additional amount of money for the residential sound installation program, which is already in the approved PFC application. And then we would add one new project, which is the terminal renovation project for about $900,000. There is some, I don't know if you'd call it industry scuttlebutt, but a pretty active discussion within the aviation industry that during the next FAA reauthorization, the PFC allowed amount might go up. I think most people would say $6. I mean, that's probably the most likely increase. And if that were to happen, this application would put us in a really good position because we would simply collect that $1 million for the terminal faster. And so, then 3-4 years down the road, we'd have to do yet another application. And so all we want to do is on the next board meeting is just let the board know we'd like to get permission to submit a new PFC application to continue what's already happening, which is that $450 we get from passengers. We'll continue to collect it, continue to apply it to the noise program. We'll add to that terminal program.
So you look at the revenue. You're always kind of second guessing the revenue because it's based on passenger boardings.
Yep. Could change tomorrow.
And it could change tomorrow, and so when you start getting the surplus, you have to commit the monies. Otherwise, what happens?
If you collect ahead of what you've got authorized to spend, the FAA can stop your collection authority. And it has happened. I had a client back east, can't remember who, but they had forgotten to fill out PFC applications. They'd continued to collect the dollars and put it in the general fund, and FAA came back and said, you don't have any eligible projects, you've been collecting these dollars. And I think the FAA made them undertake an effort to pay back passengers. And I don't remember in the end how that concluded because I think the airport, which obviously we've all come to the conclusion that was nearly impossible. And so I think what happened was the FAA told them they couldn't collect forward for a number of years until a representative number of passengers had not been charged a PFC. That's the only way they could think of to deal with it. It's fairly rare. Usually the FAA will give you kind of a warning shot that, hey, you've got extra money you're not technically supposed to be using. They really want to see you segregate the PFC monies in your accounts and then transfer it only as you have eligible projects. That's an important control.
Any questions on that? Next item on the agenda would be the joint CEO replacement.
As I said here in the memo, in 2000, the airport, along with FedEx, undertook what's known as special facility financing to build the FedEx complex over there with a very large ramp and a building. And the special facility bonds, the way those work, the building, it's a tax-exempt bond, and so the building ownership has to reside with the authority. And we, even at the end of the lease, it has to reside with the authority. So we technically own the building, and then typically we would pay the majority of the major maintenance because we have an interest in the building. FedEx would change light bulbs and those types of things as a typical tenant type of relationship. And then they pay for the financing cost of the infrastructure in a rent. And so that's the way this is structured, is basically the entirety of their rent pays off all the debt service on the building and the ramp. And at the end of the lease, the airport authority would own that facility, and we could do with it what we want. The FedEx building being built back in 2000, that ramp is about at the midpoint of its typical life. And we want to undertake a joint replacement program to seal some of the joints in between the panels. There's been a number of failures over there. I think we don't know exactly what the cost of this would be. To do just the FedEx ramp, it might be a little more or a little less than that. So what we've decided to do is allocate $100,000 to do as much as we can. We may have to come back and do a phase 2 in, next year or the year after. Or if there's a little bit left over, we'd probably come over to the terminal and undertake some joint replacement over here. The terminal's of a similar age. And so we're asking for $100,000 to go out and do some joint replacement on that FedEx ramp. And then, like I said, at the end of the lease, that building would become ours. I think we've got another 8 years left before we face that decision.
Any questions?
John, in the background there where it's talking about the background, it says we now make a profit of $100,000 over what time period?
Over a year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We had been undertaking all of that maintenance on our own. And then in the lease, we had agreed to even do the snow removal at no cost on that ramp. And so, of course, we have quite a bit of expense associated with maintenance over there. And if you could contrast that to Holman, for example, or another large tenant, we don't do some of those maintenance activities in these other areas, AvMax, those types of things. And so, FedEx, when we did this refinancing, they get notified, of course, as the tenant, and they had asked if we would give them that $100,000 in savings, and I said, no, I don't think we will. Mainly because we're in the red, and we have been in the red for a number of years. We had a big air conditioner breakdown last year that was $40,000, $50,000.
No, it's like 10 or 12.
Seemed like 40 or 50. But we've had a couple major items, and then we have just the small stuff all the time. And so what I've told them is we'd really like to keep this $100,000 and invest it in maintenance projects like this joint replacement. Now that we have a Delta, we'll take that money and funnel it back into joint maintenance, so that at the end of this lease, we're caught up on maintenance, and we're not coming back to you and telling you we have to raise the rent in order to do a bunch of maintenance stuff. So that's kind of what we've talked to them about.
So when you talk about failures over there, is that the joints that are failing?
Yeah. So far, we don't have any
Yeah,
cracked
it's just
panels.
the joint sealant is getting bad, and then there's a couple of corners of the panels that are chipping back, and
Yeah.
just some concrete's falling where the panels move.
Typically, if we can keep those joints sealed, that corner, as you probably know, around the corners there, that's an indication of shifting between the panels back and forth, and it can mean that there's water getting in there and smacking them together. And so keeping the joints in good shape just prevents that freeze-thaw from really cracking panels where you have major maintenance. Corners aren't too bad because you can kind of go in there and cut between 4 panels on a corner and put in kind of a partial panel. You don't have to replace an entire panel. It's when you start snapping and buckling, whole panels, it gets pretty expensive.
So is that-
Oh, sorry. Did you say 8 more years on that lease?
Yes. And that's, we kept the financing concurrent with the lease term when we did the refinancing. So when the lease expires, we'll be debt-free.
So what happens after that?
Well, then we'll enter in probably 2 years before that. We'll enter into renegotiations with FedEx on how that structure looks going forward. And they, in the past, they've expressed some interest in buying that facility, which I think would be really positive for us. And so we've told them, we would certainly be open to those discussions. In the past discussions with the board, we've said we probably hold too many assets. It would be good to take some of these assets and send them over to the tenant in cases like AdMax and maybe FedEx. I've kind of already planned a date with the FedEx guys. I've told them once we get 2 to 3 years before the end of the lease term, we'd like to enter into some serious discussions about that facility. The good news is there's extra room there for them. There's expandability. They've expressed some ideas in the future about how they might consolidate some other Western operations into that facility. So I think if we offer them a lot of flexibility and some opportunities to potentially lower their costs long-term, then I think we might see some expansion there.
Okay, good. Then the last item on the agenda is the topics for the retreat and a date for the retreat.
And in discussions with a couple of the board members, I know there's been some interest in some of our marketing. We could certainly talk a little bit about our marketing activities and some of the growth we've seen that we think is responsible. The marketing is lent to that growth. I thought another one that might be useful is to talk a little bit about the general aviation development down at the other end of the field as we look at some potential to develop some of that land down there for general aviation uses. In the past, we've done SWOT analysis. We typically give an airline rundown of the different carriers that we're talking to, what the carriers are up to. This year is a lot like last year in that respect, but certainly any subjects the board would like to delve into, we're more than happy to open up and get into them.
What are we thinking about for a retreat date?
We have been doing it in either April or May, and that's certainly, I think, decent timing. And what we've done the last couple of years, I think the last 2 years, we've had the retreat in the morning before the normal board meeting. We just come in and we go straight through the retreat and get that all done, have open back up for the public. And then I think one or two of the last 2 years, that's been combined with my review.
Yeah. We've done the retreat and your review.
Kind of all in one grand day of activity. Not to say that we have to do it that way.
April 29th is the April board meeting. And May 27th is May. If you guys are open to those, we could certainly just throw them out to the rest of the board members and kind of see what's best too.
April 29th or May 27th, is that what you said?
The next two
April
board
29th, May 27th.
Any preferences?
So Auburn.
We are the minority, but that doesn't mean we can't be.
April would work better for me, but I'm flexible.
I would prefer April if
Yeah.
if I could suggest it. Just I just think it gives us a little more time to actually influence the new year. If there's we've still got some construction season left and those types of things, if there's things that come out of that.
I was wondering if that might be a good venue to maybe review some of our bylaw provisions.
Can you do that?
I don't know if there's a better time or place, but that seems like a retreat type issue.
We absolutely can. Policies also?
Yeah.
Policies, procedures.
Right now, either one works for me. April's the day after our annual meeting, so we just couldn't start too early in case we have a really wild annual meeting, which hasn't been known to happen, but it could. Euphoria over different things, so either one though.
But you're okay with the 29th?
Yeah, is the May one, is that the same week as the holiday?
I was
or
going to say,
not?
that meeting we have moved in the past too because of Memorial Day.
Oh, yeah, there's a holiday going in there.
Yeah.
Is it Monday?
Yeah, Monday.
Oh, I mean, it doesn't matter to me, it may matter to others.
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
Monday and
So we're looking at April 29th
Okay.
Okay.
for the retreat. And Labor Day is when? Is it that last Monday?
September is Labor Day.
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day.
I know, still be
One of
racing
those-
ahead.
26th is,
Yeah.
that's right,
No, my calendar has no holidays on it. Yeah, I guess.
So what do we do when we change those?
Typically, just a meeting or two before, we just, the board just settles on a date and announces it publicly, and then we just notice it that way.
All right, We'll worry
on the
about that
website.
later, that's a few months down the road.
Yeah, we can certainly wait.
Any other items for the retreat that we want to talk about? I'm sure we can add to the agenda between now and then anyway, so.
Would, do you think there'd be any interest in maybe having our master plan consultants come and give a presentation? By that point, we ought to be somewhat into the master plan where they could at least talk to us a little bit about where they are in the process and that type of thing, on the facility planning side.
As long as they're not too wordy.
9 o'clock. Maybe 8.
How about the
Okay.
general aviation, was that of interest to anybody, or kind of
What do you mean by that?
just kind of our development plans down there, what we think?
Okay.
Yeah,
No, that would be interesting.
Okay. Throw that one on there. All right. And so what I'll try to do is maybe I'll put together some of these summary ideas and send them around to the board with just a brief description of what that segment would be. And you guys can decide if they don't sound very interesting or if there's other ones you want. All right.
So are there any other items or requests for items to be added to the agenda at this time? How about any comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Crutzen? Commissioner Evans?
No.
And I have no comments at this time. Are there any public comments at this time? Well, then we are adjourned until 2 o'clock, is that what we told Dick?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, the other thing we could do too is, like I said.
Oh,
we
that's
could-
right, we can,
We could probably go ahead and start the meeting and do the director's report and those types of things without Dick. It's just the actual voting things that we can't do without the quorum.
okay. Well, I will bring the February 25th, or should we take a quick break before that? What do you want to? Just do those, how far should we go?
When do you do the draft election?
Yeah,
You know, we should probably do all that at the
You
start
have
of the.
to open it and do everything. I mean, skip over, go to the director's report, and then come back to the consent agenda. But
all right, well, why don't we break for just a minute, we'll come back a quarter to and get what we can done at that time. and
All right.
Bring in Dick when we have to,
Okay.
or when he's available.
Sounds like a good plan.
There's a plan, so.
There's a plan.